Hey everyone, just a quick message before I start this video. Due to the graphic subject nature, I do advise caution for those that are squeamish or would find this sort of subject matter disturbing. I will avoid showing any graphic images, but I will discuss the nature of the crimes that have occurred in detail. If this isn't something for you, please click off of this video. Thanks to everyone that watches this, and I do hope you'll like, subscribe, comment, and share. Be sure to watch the video all the way to the end for a special giveaway announcement. The Redhead Murders are a series of serial killings that occurred in multiple states in the USA between sometime in October of 1978 and may have lasted until around the year 1992. In total, between 6 and 11 females, most of whom had red hair, were murdered and their bodies dumped along major highways. It's not known whether or not there was only one killer involved, or if there were multiple killers and possible copycats. As of the date of the release of this video, the killer has not been caught. The first known victim was murdered in February 1983 in Wetzel County, West Virginia. While she could not be identified, she was described as being a middle-aged white female of average height with a thin build, red hair, and brown eyes. She was believed to have died 2 days before her body was discovered next to a snow-covered highway by two passerbys. The cause of death was believed to be strangulation or asphyxiation. There were no signs of sexual abuse. Tire tracks and footprints found near the body indicate that the murder happened elsewhere and that the body was taken to the location for disposal. The lack of snow on the body was also an indication that it had been dumped by the highway a short time before being discovered. Saddest of all, the woman had a scar on her abdomen consistent with a C-section, meaning that she was also a mother. In September of 1984, the killer struck again. This time, the victim was identified as 28-year-old Lisa Nichols, though the identification process took nearly a year. Her body was found near a highway in West Memphis, Arkansas. Like the first victim, she too had red hair and was also strangled to death. It's believed that Lisa, who was from West Virginia, may have been hitchhiking and that the killer profiled her from a truck stop before abducting and murdering her. In January of 1985, just 4 short months after the murder of Lisa Nichols, another woman's body was discovered near a highway in Campbell County, Tennessee. This victim was believed to be in her late teens to early 20s, and like the previous 2 victims, she was also of average height, had a thin build, and red hair. She had been deceased for about 3 days when the body was discovered. She was fully clothed and there was no sign of sexual abuse. She was also never identified. Even more tragic, she was also several months pregnant at the time of her death. Just 3 months later, another woman's skeletal remains were discovered in the same county by a passerby just off of a highway. This time, the victim was suspected to only be between the ages of 9 and 15. It's not known exactly how long the remains had been there or what the cause of death was, but it's believed that the time of death could have been as long as 4 years prior. Once again, the remains could not be identified. More skeletal remains had also been discovered just a month prior in Pleasant View, Tennessee. This time, it was another white woman, possibly middle-aged of average height with red hair. She was also fully clothed. The time of death was determined to have been several months prior, and the state of decomposition made identifying the cause of death impossible. Despite attempts to identify the victim through dental records, the woman remains unidentified. In April of 1985, in Knox County, Kentucky, the nude body of a red-haired female was found stuffed inside of a refrigerator just off the highway. The victim was found to have died from asphyxiation. She was described as being rather short, under 5 feet tall, with long red hair, an abdominal scar consistent with a C-section, much like the first reported victim, and she was thought to be in her late 20s to early 30s. Despite cross-referencing her with missing persons in the area, her identity was never determined. That same month, in Greene County, Tennessee, another woman's body was discovered. This time, the victim appeared to be a teenager, of average height with a thin build, with red highlights in her hair. The cause of death, however, was not consistent with the other murders, and she was also determined to have died from a combination of blunt force trauma and stabbing. This victim, too, was also pregnant at the time of her death. Despite fingerprinting, dental record searches, DNA, and cross-referencing her with other missing women matching her description, she also was never identified. In addition to these murders, there have been more recent cases, as recent as 2001, that are believed to be connected to the same serial killer. If this is true, it means that the killer had cool-down periods of as long as a decade between murders. It also means that if this killer or killers are still alive and not in jail somewhere, they may still be out there, just waiting to strike again. Between April 1971 and September 1972, a serial killer dubbed the Freeway Phantom terrorized the District of Columbia by abducting, raping, and then strangling 6 African American girls, all between the ages of 10 and 18. The first victim was 13-year-old Carol Spinks. She went missing on April 25, 1971. 6 days later, her body was discovered near a highway laying in the grass. She had been raped and later strangled to death. On July 8, 1971, the killer struck again. This time, his victim was 16-year-old Darlenia Johnson. Darlenia had been missing for 11 days when her body was discovered in almost the exact same spot that Carol Spinks' body was discovered just over a month prior. Like Carol, Darlenia had also been raped and strangled. Less than 3 weeks later, on July 27, 1971, 10-year-old Brenda Crockett had been sent to the store by her mother to pick up a few items. When she did not return shortly thereafter, her mother became worried. Her boyfriend stayed home with Brenda's 7-year-old sister while she went out to search the neighborhood for her missing daughter. It was around 3 hours after Brenda's disappearance when the telephone at her house rang and her younger sister answered. It was Brenda. She said she had been picked up by a white man and was heading home. She then said goodbye abruptly before hanging up. When the phone rang again, the boyfriend picked up and was greeted by a shaken-sounding Brenda. She indicated that she was alone in a house with a white male. When the boyfriend asked for the man to come to the phone, Brenda once again said goodbye and abruptly hung up. A few hours after the phone call, Brenda's body was discovered by a hitchhiker. She too had been raped and strangled. On October 1st, 1971, nearly 3 months after the last murder, Nana Mashaya Yates, a 12-year-old girl, was abducted while walking home. Just a few hours later, her body too was discovered on Pennsylvania Avenue. The killer had raped the victim before strangling her to death. November 15th, 1971, the killer found his 5th victim, 18-year-old Brenda Woodward, after she boarded a city bus. Within hours of her bus ride, her body was discovered laying in the grass just off of an exit ramp. Unlike the first 4 victims, Brenda was not only strangled and raped, but she had also been stabbed in the chest and had a coat draped over her body. It was inside the pockets of the jacket that investigators discovered a note written by the killer, in which he seemed to taunt the police. The note read,
"This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me, if you can. The Freeway Phantom."
Most disturbing of all was that the note was taken from Brenda's own school notebook and also appeared to be in her handwriting. It is believed that the killer forced her to write the note so that the handwriting could not lead police to him. For almost a year, there were no further murders that matched the serial killer's MO. That is until September 5th, 1972, when 17-year-old Diane Williams's body was discovered just off of the highway sometime after she boarded a bus. Despite a hotline being open for the investigation, as well as countless letters and tips, everything led to a dead end. A gang known as the Green Vega Rapists were thought to have been responsible, so police interviewed numerous members that had already been incarcerated. One gang member serving a life sentence, who said he was not involved in the murders, agreed to speak with investigators, provided that he was allowed to remain unidentified. He stated that another inmate had been responsible for the murders and even offered up information about the locations of the bodies that was not made public. However, shortly after the interview, the inmate refused to give any more statements or information. If what the inmate said is true, it means that the killer had already been arrested and was serving time in prison. However, what is not known is the identity of the killer or the length of the prison sentence. It's been over 40 years since the last murder. It's possible that the killer is older now, perhaps deceased, or tucked away in a prison cell somewhere, but it's also possible that he isn't. Between February and July of 1975, The Cutler Bay area of Florida was the site of between 5 and 30 murders by a serial killer who used a very different approach to stalking and killing his victims. The killer would feign the part of a good Samaritan by offering to help his victims, all women, after they experienced a flat tire on their car. Unbeknownst to the victims, the killer had watched the victims from afar as they parked their vehicles. When they were out of sight, he would deliberately damage their tires, causing them to go flat. When they returned to their vehicles and saw the damage, he would approach and pretend to offer assistance to the women, such as a ride. It was only after he had gained their trust that the killer would then murder them using a variety of items such as an ice pick and a hammer, often beating and disfiguring them to the point that they were nearly impossible to identify. Of the known victims were Ronnie Gorlin, age 27, Elise Knapp, age 21, Barbara Stevens, age 23, and two 14-year-old classmates, Barbara Schreiber and Belinda Zetterauer. Despite the suspected number of victims being as high as 30, police believe all of the murders were the work of one killer. As of February 2017, the case remains unsolved. No suspects have been named, no true MO has ever been determined, and no arrests have been made. It's possible that this psychopath is still walking the streets and still feigning the part of Good Samaritan. Hey everyone, just a real quick message here about the giveaway. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. I'm not going to make some insane demand like 50,000 shares, 50,000 likes, or 50,000 comments because I feel that that would be ridiculous. I'm going to throw out a more realistic number. Let's see if we can get 100 likes, 100 shares, and 100 comments on this video. I'll be giving away an iPod Touch 6th generation. Just one. I'm not rich or anything like that because YouTube certainly doesn't pay very well. I don't get paid from Google AdSense or anything like that, so as of right now, I'm doing this for free. I'm going to be picking a name from the comments section, so if you did like this video and you did leave a comment, please check your inbox because I'll be picking one lucky person to win the iPod Touch. And no, this is not clickbait, this is not a scam. I am actually going to give one of these away, so please, everyone make sure to check your inboxes because this is a legitimate giveaway. I'll be running this giveaway until the end of February, and in March I will announce the winner in a video. So please everyone stay tuned. Again, a huge thank you to everyone that liked this video, everyone that sat through it all the way to the end, and everyone that enjoyed it. Thank you so very much. Until next time, stay scared.